Hey VC, Shelf Stacker back for more. I've been watching quite a few of your videos recently, and it looks to me like the secret of a successful channel is to wear a hat. So I'm going to give it a go and see how many of those subscribers roll in. Today's subject is Neo-Psych, and I don't see this talked about so much on the VC as the 60s variety. And I was a bit sniffy about it for a long time, but the more I delve into it, more I realise there's some great stuff out there. And Matt Sands has made a couple of videos about Neo-Psych, and I've been turned on to some really good stuff by his videos. So I thought I'd share some of my Neo-Psych with you. I'm just going to limit it to 6 albums today. Probably do another video on this subject later. But my rambling sort of style means that my videos are tending to stretch out to about half an hour, which is too long. So get straight to it. First off, I have Melody Fields, and this album came out in 2018. They're a Swedish band, and this came out on red vinyl, which was limited to 200 copies. And this is a really good album. It's very Eastern tinged, dreamy, hypnotic psych. Quite atmospheric, almost claustrophobic in places, and it depends on its atmosphere rather than for its songs for its appeal, I suppose. Some instrumentals on here. Sitar features quite heavily, guitar, some sax squawks. In places we get male vocals and quite a bit of fuzz guitar. Sort of sitar drones. Best tracks. Liberty is a very trippy, hypnotic, bass-driven track. Sort of birds-like guitar. And it's almost like Revolver-era Beatles, but played slightly slower. And then there's a track called Trad Granson, if that's how you pronounce it, which again, very atmospheric and creepy with a sort of sitar drone and very dry tom-tom rhythm to it, and that kind of reminds me a bit of Venus in Furs, the Velvet Underground track. So yeah, it's a good one. Overall, it reminds me, I suppose, of another Swedish band, I think a Swedish, Soundtrack of Our Lives, and like a less heavy Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. So yeah, they are well worth checking out. So yeah, Melody Fields, self-titled. And up next, we've got Soft Power and their album In a Brown Study. This came out in 2017, and they're a band out of Finland. And it's quite a difficult one to track down now, this album. So good luck with that, but it's worth checking out if you can find it. And this one, after the sort of brooding, claustrophobic intensity of Melody Fields, this is definitely a warmer, sunnier take on the psychedelic experience. It's jazzy psych. There's saxophone on here, there's lots of loose-limbed, sort of funky drum grooves and piano. There's even sort of Japanese koto, or what sounds like that on here at one point, with a sort of spoken Finnish vocal over the top. A lot of it is instrumental. It's all very blissed out. And highlights. Well, there's one track called Kulma Clubby, again, pronunciation, which almost sounds like a John Barry soundtrack. This beautiful piece of music, all sort of muted trumpets and acoustic guitar and brush drums. Perhaps not strictly psychedelic, but it's definitely got that period feel to it. And listen to that one with your eyes closed and you're picturing barefoot flower child spinning under a cloudless sky with flowers in her hair. Or perhaps that's just me, don't know. But that's thoroughly recommended. Elsewhere we've got sort of the odd sort of Beatlesque lysergic mantra in the vocals, and sort of splashy echoing drums and chiming guitars. And there's even the track Sisa Metsa, which is all hypnotic flute and conga, with slide guitar weaving in and out. And it's funny because last time I listened to it, it put me in mind of a sort of organic take on the Doctor Who theme, but with no electronics and all the menace taken out of it. So probably nothing like the Doctor Who theme at all, but that's just what conjured up. And that's a really great track. Another highlight is a track, Afterglow, which is kind of what it says. You know, it's a blissed out afterglow of a track. It's heavy fuzz guitar, another sort of Beatlesque kind of mantra to the vocals, hand percussion, dreamy vocals, backwards guitar, and it's a lovely blissed out track. So yeah, soft power. And if you can find that, give it a listen because it is really rather good. Next up is this lot, Grey Mouse and their album Trip, and what I think is some really beautiful artwork on the sleeve there. There's the band, and this lot are out of Russia. This album came out in 2012. I think limited to 200 copies on black vinyl, this one. And it's Eastern flavoured psych blues rock, I suppose you'd call it. There's heavy Hendrix inspired guitar all over it. The vocals are all done by a woman whose voice, I have to say, doesn't do a huge amount for me. Doesn't get in the way. The album would be just as good without them there. They're sometimes spoken vocals with a slightly nasal quality to them, so I can take them or leave them really. But it doesn't change the fact that it's a good album. It reminds me quite a bit of the kind of thing that Brant Bjork, one-time drummer of Kyuss, does in his solo career. That kind of laid back, sometimes heavy, fuzzed up stoner rock with a sort of psych feel to it. Won't change your life, but it's a decent album and well worth checking out. And then we have Voice of the Seven Woods, which came out in 2007, and it's basically a one-man band. It's a guy called Rick Tomlinson from England, and he plays everything on this apart from bass and drums. He plays guitar, he plays oud, and you can see him there on the inner sleeve, clutching his oud. There's sitar on here and piano and percussion. I guess it's acid folk or Eastern psych or whatever you want to call it. There's elements of Pentangle and John Renbourn in here, but there's also some intense electric guitar on here as well. But the album starts in sort of mellow acoustic fashion with a track that almost sounds like something that Jimmy Page and Robert Plant might have heard if they'd been sat in a Moroccan souk before going off and recording Led Zepp 3. And that's kind of a vibe that continues throughout the album, that kind of Eastern acoustic ethnic instrumentation, but with intermittent heavy parts. There's a track called Sayat Nova, which is again all Arabic instrumentation with added fuzz guitar, and that sounds like the soundtrack to a disorienting stumble through a Middle Eastern bazaar after you've partaken of a few of the local delicacies. Other highlights, Silver Morning Branches, fourth track on the first side, which is the first one to feature vocals, and it's all hand drums and tambourines and a lovely vocal melody, which brings to mind Coming Back to Me by Jefferson Airplane off their Surrealistic Pillow album, and that is a wonderful track. And yeah, it's on the whole it has that dreamy acoustic vibe, but with the searing guitars occasionally. There's a track called Second Transition where it's a full-on Eddie Hazel style psych guitar freakout, but you're still left with this impression when the album's finished of a beautiful pastoral acoustic album that's psychedelic in a very grounded British pagan way. So more like the experience of watching Wicker Man than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And it is most definitely recommended. Talented guy. Next up we've got this one, which I've played to death since I got it a couple of years ago. Sula Bassana's Dreamer album. Now this is originally came out in 2002. This is the 10-year anniversary reissue. It's the project of a guy called Dave Schmidt, a German guy who plays for the space rock trio Electric Moon, but this is his own thing. Literally his own. He writes and plays everything on this album, I think. And I suppose it's krautrock with a strong Pink Floyd, Steve Hillage type of vibe to it. And it opens with a track that's quite uncharacteristic of the rest of the album. It's more of a 60s style psych pop track with a treated vocal. And from then on, with each track, he ramps up the intensity so that we get space rock with really insistent riffs, phased guitars, synths, feedback, and quite a lot of a Pink Floyd sort of influence on here. There's quite a bit of sort of Gilmour-esque guitar, and we're talking sort of metal era Floyd here rather than the later or the Syd Barrett era. There's quite a pulsing krautrock influence. And the highlight on here for me probably is first track on second side, which is called Amanda, or Ananda, can't read that. It's a haunting instrumental. It's got an electronic sort of drum pulse, and it's recurring noise on it. It sounds like an electronically generated goose honking, which is quite a weird, unsettling sound. It actually reminds me, there's a John Martin song, I forget which one it is or which album, but I know that he recorded it at dawn outdoors, John Martin this is, and on that track you can hear real geese flying past, honking as they fly, and this is like a sort of electronic version of that. Yeah, this track has got sitar, it's got heavily reverbed piano. It is very, very trippy. It has this urgent sort of guitar that comes in at one point like a siren, accompanies sort of wordless groans and growls. And the whole thing is really dark and unsettling, and that's the kind of thing I love. It really, makes you sit up and take notice. And the album finishes with a very obscure Pink Floyd cover, in fact, Baby Blue Shuffle in D major. And again, it's something from that kind of metal era, I suppose. It's post-Sid, pre-Dark Side of the Moon. And it's all synth burbles, slide guitar, and this sort of motoric bass groove. So that, probably out of all the ones I'm going to show you, is the one you should track down, because it is a fantastic album. It builds and builds, and the second side is just superb. And finally, we have Silver Sunshine, an American band, and this came out in 2004. Some nice artwork, and the band rendered as dandelions or something on the back there. And this band features three guys who later went on to form the band Astra, who were a kind of proggy, almost King Crimson-esque sort of space rock band, I suppose. And there are hints in this album of what was to come, but not that many. It's definitely more in the kind of psych pop realm, this album, and it's a real Anglophile album as well. Their influences, apart from a bit of Beach Boys, their influences all seem to be of British 60s bands The Beatles, of course, the Idol Race, the Kinks, Small Faces perhaps, and most definitely The Move, who you can hear all over this album. It starts off with the first track, which is called Velvet Skies, and that's kind of got sped up Tomorrow Never Knows drum loop going on, and it's power pop psych really. Brings to mind a sort of trippier Lenny Kravitz perhaps, and the psych pop vibe continues throughout the album. Like I say, a very strong Move vibe. At one point on the track Nightmares, there's acoustic guitar and mellotron, and the whole song has this real sort of Elliott Smith kind of feel to it, which is never a bad thing. The Beatles are all over this, of course, and on When She Wakes Tomorrow, you can hear those sort of almost trademarked Beatles single note piano stabs punctuating the track. There's a nice sort of Beach Boys inspired middle eight on that track as well, and a hint of the Kinks. Perhaps the heaviest, most overtly psychedelic track is the final track, which sort of steals the riff from Ticket to Ride, chucks on some backwards guitars, trippy side effects, and some nice melodic lead guitar lines over some phased drums. And yeah, this is an album of properly realised songs. It's not just an atmospheric mood piece like some of the albums I've shown you. You know, each track can be taken in isolation, and yes, sometimes it gets quite close to pastiche, but it's always done with such love and such, you know, technical proficiency, if you like, that it's a rewarding listen. So yeah, Silver Sunshine, self-titled. You should check it out. So I hope there's something amongst that lot that's piqued your interest. I've got a lot more to get through, so I will show some more of these Neo-Psych albums at some point, and maybe get on to doing some of my original 60s Psych as well. But I thought I'd get these off my chest after having shown the Butterscotch Cathedral in my last video. It made me think, yeah, there's quite a few others in that kind of genre that I should be sharing with people. So, hope you enjoyed that. I will be back soon with another video, I hope. And for now, take care. Bye.